21 miles. That's all it stands between the global economy and collapse. On March 2, 2026, an IRGC commander named Ebrahim Jabari went on Iranian state television and said, "The strait is closed. We will set those ships ablaze." Within hours, 20 million barrels of oil per day stopped moving. Oil prices didn't just rise, they detonated. $67 became $120. CNN called it the biggest oil disruption in history. But here's the thing nobody's talking about. We've been here before, and last time, a tiny country with nothing but wind changed the world. To understand why the strait closed, you need to see this map. These red dots, American military bases surrounding Iran from every direction. June 2025. Israel strikes first. Operations start, bombing Iran's nuclear facilities at Fordo, Natanz, across Tehran. 9 days later, America joins. B-2 stealth bombers, the most expensive aircraft ever built. Each one carrying a 30,000-pound bunker buster designed to punch through 200 feet of concrete. Tomahawk missiles launching from submarines beneath the Gulf. Trump called the result completely obliterated. Iran's answer came the next day. 6 missiles at the largest American airbase in Qatar. One hit, nobody died, and Trump declared a ceasefire. He called Iran's response weak. 8 months later, Iran erupted. Protests, thousands killed, the regime cracking from inside. Then IAEA inspectors found hidden uranium. Talks collapsed, and on February 28, 2026, the bombs fell again. This time they killed the supreme leader, and this time Iran didn't fire 6 missiles. They fired 500 plus 2,000 drones at everything, everywhere. What happened next makes every oil crisis in modern history look like a rehearsal. Iran hit them all, every American base it could reach. Bahrain, home of the Fifth Fleet, satellite communications destroyed. Apartment buildings near the base caught fire, civilians injured. Qatar, Al Udeid, hit again. Kuwait, Camp Arif-Chan, 3 Americans killed, the first combat deaths of this war. Saudi Arabia, Prince Sultan Air Base. The UAE, Al Dhafra, Jebel Ali Port. Gulf air defenses intercepted about 70%. But when you fire 2,500 projectiles, 30% getting through is a catastrophe. Emirates canceled 80% of its flights overnight. Dubai hotels went from packed to empty. 100,000 foreign workers were told to get out. But none of that was the real blow. The real blow was the water. March 2nd, Iran closes the Strait of Hormuz. And they don't just close it with words. They attack 17 ships in the first week. Crew members killed, a tugboat sunk, 3 sailors still missing. They hit a US-flagged tanker at port, in Bahrain, with the Navy right there. Every major shipping line on Earth pulled out. Maersk, CMA CGM, Hapag-Lloyd, all of them gone. 153 ships used to pass through here every day. Now, 13. In 1973, the Arab oil embargo took 4 million barrels off the market. The world nearly collapsed. This, 20 million barrels. 5 times worse. Let me show you what happens to the world when you turn off the oil. February 20th, oil sits at $67. Nobody's worried. February 28th, the strikes begin. Oil jumps 13% before lunch. March 2nd, Iran closes the strait. Markets lose their minds. March 8th, oil hits $120.
That's an 82% spike in 16 days. The Wall Street Journal, oil prices are barreling toward all-time highs. March 9th, the single largest one-day oil price gain ever recorded. Ever. Then Qatar shuts down. The world's biggest LNG exporter just stops. European gas prices double in 48 hours. Stock markets bleed. Tokyo, Mumbai, London, New York, all red. The Indian rupee crashes, the Turkish lira crashes, the dollar surges, because when everything falls apart, people run to dollars. Food prices spike because everything, growing it, harvesting it, moving it, refrigerating it, runs on oil. Factories in China and Europe drop to 70% capacity, not because they want to, because they can't afford to run. Oxford Economics gives the world a 40% chance of recession if the strait stays closed for a month. The White House says releasing the strategic oil reserve is, quote, on the table. But they haven't done it.
Now, if you think this is unprecedented, it's not. In 1973, the world went through something terrifyingly similar, and what happened after that crisis is the real story. The 1973 embargo lasted 6 months. This one's been 9 days. Imagine 6 months of this. But in the wreckage of that 1973 crisis, one country found something extraordinary. Denmark. 1973, 99% of its energy imported oil. No domestic oil, no gas, no coal, no nuclear, nothing. When the embargo hit, they couldn't heat their homes. The government banned cars on Sundays. Copenhagen went silent. But the Danes didn't just panic. They got stubborn. See, Denmark had a secret. Back in the 1890s, a Danish inventor named Poul La Cour had built some of the world's first wind turbines. For a few decades, wind powered Danish farms. Then cheap oil showed up and everyone forgot. After 1973, Denmark remembered. In garages and workshops across the country, teachers and engineers started building wind turbines by hand. In 1975, a group of teachers and students decided to build the biggest one in the world. No corporate money, no government contracts, just belief. 3 years later, it generated electricity for the first time. It still runs today. And in a small town called Lem, a farm equipment company was watching. They made cranes and truck parts. Their name was Vestas. In 1979, the year of the second oil shock, Vestas built their first wind turbine, 30 kilowatts, about enough to power a few houses. And then the Danish government did something no other country did. They went all in. Subsidies, tax breaks, research funding, feed-in tariffs. They decided as a nation that they would never be held hostage by oil again. By the mid-80s, Denmark led the world in wind power. By the 90s, Danish companies owned half the global market. Today, Denmark gets 60% of its electricity from wind. It exports energy to its neighbors. And Vestas, that little farm equipment company from Lem, now operates in 80 countries. Here's the fact that matters right now. While oil is at $120, while the Gulf burns, while 20 million barrels sit trapped, Denmark's electricity prices have barely moved. Its factories are running, its lights are on, because you cannot embargo the wind. And this is where the story turns, because the signals flashing right now are identical to 1973, except for one massive difference. In 1973, wind power was a dream. In 2026, it's cheaper than oil. Within days of the strait closing, something started happening in the markets. While everything else bled red, renewable energy stocks turned green. Vestas up 10%, GE Vernova, First Solar, Tesla, all climbing. But stock prices are just sentiment. Watch where the real money goes. March 4th, Ørsted commits €2 billion to offshore wind in the UK. March 6th, US developers add $1 billion to offshore projects. Same day, Germany throws €3 billion at green hydrogen. Denmark fast-tracks new wind farms. The UK issues emergency approvals. Japan accelerates its targets. India, which imports 80% of its oil and has 7,000 kilometers of untapped coastline, announces a 100-gigawatt renewable plan. Bloomberg NEF puts it simply, this crisis accelerates renewables 10 to 20% faster. Now look at this.
In 1975, global wind capacity was 0. Today, over 1,000 gigawatts. Wind power costs $25 to $50 per megawatt hour. Oil-fired power at today's prices, 3 to 4 times more. Japan, South Korea, Africa, Southeast Asia, every country crushed by this oil shock is also sitting on wind resources they've barely touched. The 1973 crisis created one wind power nation. This one could create dozens. But here's the question that should keep every leader on Earth awake tonight. We've seen this movie before. Crisis, response, oil prices drop, everyone forgets, repeat. 1973, 1979, 2008, 2022, every single time. Will 2026 be different? In 1973, the world had no alternative to oil, none. Wind was a toy, solar was science fiction, electric cars were golf carts. In 2026, the alternatives aren't just real. In most of the world, they're already cheaper. Renewables have gone from less than 1 gigawatt to over 2,600. That's not a trend, that's a revolution that already happened. We just haven't committed to it. Denmark took 50 years to make this journey. The rest of the world doesn't need 50 years. The technology is built, the supply chains exist, the costs are proven. All that's ever been missing is the urgency. And in Denmark, the turbines are turning. That's not luck, that's a choice they made 50 years ago. Every tool exists, every technology is proven. The only thing that's ever been missing is a reason painful enough to act. Well, the Strait just provided the reason. The only question is whether we'll break the cycle this time or sleepwalk into the next one. Denmark chose the wind. The Strait of Hormuz is 21 miles wide. 9 days ago, it closed. 3 Americans dead, 17 ships attacked. Qatar's gas stopped, Dubai went dark. And somewhere in Western Jutland, in a town called Lem, where a farm equipment company built a 30-kilowatt wind turbine in 1979, the blades are still turning. If this changed how you think about energy, subscribe, share it,